Hello, everybody, this is Purge, bringing you guys a first-person replay commentary of a Leshrac game. I played this one about a week ago, and this is right before the buffs. Lesh Bucks, I didn't mean to pun there with Lesh looking like an animal or anything. But the Lesh buffs that came 2 or 3 days ago, so this is before that. I thought I'd still make the game because somebody asked about a Leshrac replay commentary, I think maybe in the Discord recently. So let us get into it. We haven't gone over the Dotabuff section in a while, so let's get over it with Leshrac. The hero is actually very unpopular lately, and has been for quite a while, which is kind of interesting to me. Part of the reason... Alright, so Leshrac as a hero was very popular around TI 5 when EG won, but after that he got nerfed relatively hard, and since then has basically been forgotten for a couple of years. Interestingly, if you want to watch somebody much better than me play Leshrac, S4 would be a good one. I know he's mentioned in interviews before that it's his favorite hero, I believe in the entire game, and he has the highest rated Leshrac by far in the world, so at least on Dotabuff rankings, so it might be a good game to check out. In fact, I might watch this later. But as a hero, Leshrac, the way he works is he does a lot of AoE magic damage. He does some physical with his Diabolic Edict skill, but mainly he just does a lot of magic damage, and he needs to be survivable enough to stand in the middle of your enemies and chase them down and things like that. So generally he's been good as a core. Occasionally he's been played as a support by teams like Complexity, but it's never really worked super well, and it's kind of phased in and out, and generally just out, doesn't work. Because as a support, for your ultimate to work, it does damage in an area around you. So if you're support, you're not really going to stand in the middle of your enemies for a long time, which means that eventually it's not going to do enough damage, as it does stay on over time. So he pretty much only works as a core, and you need to snowball a little bit and get put into a good position. Sorry about that, allergies are bad here. So skill-wise, he has a ground-targeted AoE stun, similar to Lena's stun. Does a lot of damage at level 1, 120 in the area, or the radius of the circle gets bigger as you level it up, as well as the damage and the mana cost, but the stun duration is the same at all levels. Diabolic Edict does random explosions around your hero. These are physical based, and it can hit towers, so it's very good at destroying towers, at damaging heroes that are magic immune, heroes that are invisible but are nearby you. The downside is that it's random, so much like Rocket Barrage or Eclipse, it's going to hit random units, so if there's a lot of units there, then Diabolic Edict won't do very much damage to the person you want it to deal damage to. It'll spread it evenly among creeps. Lightning Storm just got buffed 2 days ago, but the way that this skill works... Oh man, there we go. You cast this on a target, has to be on a target, and it will slow them and deal damage, and each bounce, and then it'll bounce from there. It strikes 4 to 10 times, depending on what level it is. It only does 200 damage, but the nice thing about the skill now is that it's very low mana cost at level 1. The downside is that the slow duration is really weak early, but becomes very good late. 1 second of slow. Lightning Storm right now is decent. In S4's game, he did max it out by 7. He went mid, and he did this in China as well, which is even harder because the MMR is... players in China are extremely good. And there's a lot of them, I believe. So very competitive there. But he was mid versus Shadow Fiend. He went 2 points in stun, and he maxed out Lightning Storm, maybe to test it out, maybe because he thinks it's good. But if you max it out, it deals 200 damage, which is relatively good. And then you can probably team fight often, push waves, things like that. Man, I was just leaking. Your ultimate is one of the best ultimates in the game. In ability draft, this is a really good skill to grab, just because it makes your hero become a carry pretty much no matter what you are. And that's because with 1 point in your ultimate, you can deal 100 damage per second in a massive AoE of 450 radius. That's a huge area of effect. And it only costs you 20 mana per second to keep it on. It costs you 70 mana to initiate it. Now, the crucial thing about this skill is that the difference between the second skill point and the first is a doubling of mana per second. So if you don't have a lot of mana regen, generally it's better to just keep it at 1 skill point for a little bit longer until you feel like you have your bloodstone for mana regen, or you feel like you have enough mana regen. But if you want more damage, just put more skill points into it. Just be careful, because it's going to end up being very expensive mana cost as the game goes on. It's currently the most popular ability build, but it is not very highly built. The build that I went in my game was I maxed stun and Diabolic Edict while getting my ultimate, and I skipped Lightning Storm. But I think the builds certainly can vary, and with Lightning Storm getting buffed so that it's very low mana cost at level 1, it's definitely something that you should probably skill now, just because you can use it to last hit and also harass your opponent. Before, Lightning Storm only did 50 damage, which basically means you're probably not going to be able to last hit with it better than your opponent's attacking. So with Lightning Storm becoming viable again, you won't have to rely on Split Earth to get last hits, and because the mana cost is so low, you can get a last hit, and sometimes it's also going to bounce and harass your opponent, kind of similar to Zeus. Talent-wise, his talents have been changed and buffed in a lot of good ways. He recently, I don't know about recently, but he has a 5 armor perk at 10 now, which is very good. There's also a 250 mana perk, depending on which one you'd prefer to have. Generally, I like getting armor perks on heroes like Leshrac, because if you're standing in the middle of a fight, 5 armor is going to help your high HP go farther, and especially when you buy things like Bloodstone, which just give you raw HP and raw mana. I want armor to make that health more valuable against physical damage when I dive towers and things like that. So the armor perk is very good. I also like that S4 bought a bottle. That's a really good idea, because Lesh has a really, really high int gain at 3, and he's got really high base int. So that means any bottle charges he uses is going to refill a lot of his mana pool. Lesh also got a movement speed buff again. He was 325, but with this next patch, he's now 330. So he's a super, super, super fast hero. This is like faster than Crystal Maiden when Crystal Maiden has boots. He does have 4 horse legs, so it kind of makes sense. But his strength gain is okay, but not great, and his agility gain is okay, but not great. His base armor is pretty good, 322, I didn't even know that. And his base damage is actually pretty low, but that's probably been nerfed as a result of Lesh being a popular mid-hero in the past. Alright, we're cleared out. So, talent tree. I almost always go the 5 armor, but in the past everybody would go 250 mana because the other one was like 10 movement speed or something else that was really crappy. The 15 perk, I prefer the 40 movement speed one myself, just because 40 movement speed is a lot. And again, on a hero that's going to stand in the middle of enemies, you need movement speed so you can chase them. So movement speed is really good. But strength is also very good because it makes you more survivable, less prone to dying to burst. 15 strength equates to 300 health. And because it's strength and not just raw HP, it's actually pretty good because on your hero you have Bloodstone, which gives you 7 HP per second, and you're using bottle charges. So strength is pretty good for healing or increasing the amount of regen you get. So there's you can make advocates for both. In S4's game, he ended up getting the strength perk. The 20 perk is really cool too. It's either 50 Pulse Nova damage or 25% evasion. So the Pulse Nova damage one is pretty interesting. The way the ultimate scales is 100 damage, 140, 180. So each point of your ultimate gives you 40 damage. So this can be seen as better than 1 point in your ultimate. And if anything, when you're level 17 with level 2 Pulse Nova, going from level 17 to level 20 is a really big jump because you're going from 140 damage to 230 if you grab the perk at 20. So that's like a huge damage jump, and maybe something worth considering that. Getting the level 3 ultimate and then hitting level 20 and getting another Pulse Nova damage, that's pretty cool. In S4's game, he did get Pulse Nova damage. I do see that it has a much higher win rate, but I also like that the evasion is there because sometimes the problem with Leshrac is that it's very hard to fit in armor items on the hero. It's very common to get Shiva's Guard, like S4 did here, just because it covers all your bases. Makes you tankier in terms of physical damage, reduces their attack speed, gives you an AoE nuke and AoE slow, which is very good for chasing and dealing damage in an AoE. But sometimes fitting in just an evasion perk can be really nice on a hero like Lesh if you're having trouble dealing with an opponent that deals too much physical damage, or if he's kind of like a build counter, gives you an alternative. I ended up getting mine in my game. But I definitely see why 50 Pulse Nova damage is really good, especially because it means you're killing creep waves much faster. Pulse Nova is like the best creep or farm clearing ability in the game in a lot of ways. Leshrac can farm neutral camps and a comparable speed to heroes with Battle Fury, so keep that in mind. That between Pulse Nova and all of your other AoE, tons of physical damage with single target, this guy farms jungles and creep waves extremely fast, despite being an int-based or a nuke-based hero. So definitely consider more damage. And then at level 25, this perk has a much higher win rate. It gives you 50 more Diabolic Edict explosions. The original one does 40, I believe. Yep, 40 explosions, so it does more than double the amount of damage. This perk is this perk is very good generally, especially for killing buildings. If you even get like a refresher shard or something, getting 2 Diabolic Edicts is very good at stacks. So very good at clearing out heroes, dealing a lot of physical damage, killing buildings faster. With that said, this perk is also very good, plus 3 second lightning slow duration. That would be this skill. That's on a 4 second cooldown, That means if you cast the 4-second cooldown ability, it will slow them not for 1 second, but for four whole seconds at 75%, which is a huge amount of slow. But the problem is that late game situations, slow is not always that great. If they have a Dispel, like a Yule's, or a Lotus Orb, or if they have a Black King Bar, that does not work. So sometimes this perk is probably not worth getting. We'll check what these talents are within the game using the Dota trends from Dota Plus. But either way, these values are still very valuable to look at. And one other thing I'm forgetting is Aghanim Scepter. Aghanim Scepter is another option on Leshrac. It says it has a 65 win rate. I'm not sure. I've never tried it, but I probably should. The way that it works is every 1.75 seconds that your ultimate goes off, the Scepter will automatically trigger a Lightning Storm, I believe on the... It says hit one random unit. It might be random hero first. I'm not sure. But either way, it does increase your ultimate damage technically by quite a bit, because every 1.75 seconds you're getting a Lightning Storm thrown out. So that's like adding... I mean, we can do the math, right? 1.75... This is per second. No, it should be the other way around. 200 divided by 1.75. So if you buy Ags, you are increasing your Pulse Nova damage by 114.28 magic damage per second. So with the Pulse Nova damage one, we're doing 230 plus this. So we're looking at 350 AoE magic damage per second. You could argue if it's only one hero, it's the same thing, because again, Lightning Storm won't bounce, but that's fine. And then hypothetically, if we have an Ags, this perk becomes much, much, much more appealing, because the other thing they did is they reduced the animation cast time of Lightning Storm, because before it was really long, and they reduced it a little bit to from 0.5 to 0.4, I believe. So if you get an Ags, lots of lightning, lots of slows, and hypothetically, if you have an Ags, getting this perk is really good, because then constantly creeps around you, neutral creeps, summoned units, they are all basically permanently slowed, more or less. Assuming there's not more than 10 lightning strikes. So yeah, Ag's definitely something to consider, but again, the item just makes you raw tankiness. Your raw tankiness will increase, but your actual survivability won't go up much. So it kind of makes you a bit of a meat. Like you're a very giant orange. So like there's a lot of orange to shoot through, but it's pretty easy to shoot through the oranges, maybe how I'd describe it. So Octarine Core is extremely good on the hero because you deal so much AoE magic damage that you lifesteal from it and get heals back. Yule's is mandatory in some cases because it's kind of like Death Prophet. You do a lot of magic damage. Sometimes you get focused. You need to Yule's yourself to buy yourself a couple seconds, or to remove a silence or something like that, or to stun somebody because you've already used your stun, or interrupt something, for example. Kaya is probably okay, but the issue is the item doesn't make you much more survivable yourself. The extra int is fine, the spell amp is very good, and the mana cost and mana loss reduction is good. But honestly, it's probably not worth buying, I feel like, because it's going to take up an item slot. It's only a 2,000 gold item that doesn't transition. And your mana costs are kind of just solved by getting a Bloodstone anyways, so I feel like the Kaya is kind of unnecessary. I'd rather buy something like Yule Scepter is just much better for dealing with your mana problems. Bloodstone gives you something like, I don't know, 13 to 15 mana per second with all the Bloodstone charges. Is it that high? I did the math the other day. It's 0.3 times like 16 or something. 14 charges plus 2, so 14 times 0.35 equals plus 2. Way off. 6.9 mana per second at its base level, but obviously that's increased based on how much intelligence you have. And Yule Scepter gives you more intelligence, and it gives you an extra 2.25 mana regen. So as an item, Yule's is probably way better by keeping you survivable, by allowing you to dispel silences and things like that if needed, or dodge abilities, and also gives you more mana regen, and it gives you movement speed. These are all things you really need on this hero. So it's much better to buy a Yule's than it is to buy a Kaya, in my opinion, even though the damage increase is very nice. And because you're going to quickly fill up your item slots anyways. Boots of Travel is very good too. Very often you can go Arcanes, disassemble, turn that into your Bloodstone, later buy Boots of Travel for the movement speed boost. I don't think you necessarily need something like Phase Boots. It's just better for you to have Arcanes and a Brown Boots, and then from Brown Boots go to BOTs. I think that's a much better way. And then of course, Octarine, Shivas should be on this list. I built Veil in my game, but I think I'm becoming more and more of a Veil hater. I've been circle jerking it too much. talking about how great it is, but it's not always great. Good against Lone Druid because you just deal tons of AoE damage to both the Lone Druid himself and the bear, and it doesn't matter how much armor they have, they're both going to die fast. Visage, you can break his Gravekeeper's Cloak and kill his birds very easily, and he does a pretty good amount of physical damage, but you can kind of build against that either by going like Solar Crest or Shiva's early or something like that. PL, you do so much AoE damage that you can just clear PL illusions. Darkseer doesn't do that much single target damage, so a really high HP hero like Leshrac, who's going to be gaining int magic resistance with all of its int purchases, is not going to do much damage to you. Nightstalker probably just dies, doesn't do enough. Meepo, weak to AoE. Doom, if Doom dooms Leshrac, but Leshrac already has his ultimate on, then Leshrac does not care that he's been doomed, because he's at least still doing Pulse Nova damage, and he has so much HP and regen and movement speed that usually you should be able to get out of the fight, I would argue. So that's a lot of those things. Hero meta statistics, yep, one of the least picked heroes at the moment. He has a very good win rate, above 5k, but not so good at lower levels because they probably don't know how to min-max him or play him or farm efficiently. Ah, that's not what I wanted to show you. Oh, and this is the S4 game. What I meant to show you was my my win rate on the hero. He was one of my favorite heroes in Dota 1, for sure. For some reason, Microsoft Edge just does not work for me when I press Control F. I feel like he's going to be higher. Yeah, he's actually pretty up there. Yeah, he's like one of my top 10, 15 most played heroes. I have a very high win rate, actually, 67%. I feel a good affinity for heroes like Leshrac, Undying, Death Prophet. The stand in the middle of your opponents and stay alive and deal damage by doing aggressive things. Those heroes I feel a good affinity with. And that's basically all the Dotabuff section. The only other thing I want to show you guys is probably the Trends tab on the hero, to check in to see what the trends are like within the game. So this is probably my favorite aspect of the wow, that win rate difference. So this is my favorite aspect of Dota Plus. The other aspects are okay, but I love this one to see like what the win rate differences between the different perks. And you can see how they change by MMR, and you can see which one has a bigger win rate. Now this one's picked much less at 20%, but it has a much higher win rate. And I guess I'm not that surprised about this, because in the late game, BKBs do run out. The other thing I really like about looking at this is it kind of fuels discussion in my mind about which perk is better, and it's kind of hard to know which one's truly better without seeing some numbers like this. I think the armor one makes sense to me. 250 mana is good, but that's not mana that comes back faster, and generally Lesh is going to have enough mana pool, raw mana pool, just by buying Bloodstone and Yules and things like that and getting int gain. He needs more mana regen, so if this was a mana regen perk, I'd maybe consider getting it, to be honest, but 250 mana alone, don't care. 5 armor is going to be better if you're playing core on Leshrac. 250 mana difference is probably not going to matter in a lot of cases. Between these ones, I think the movement speed is much better. Maybe S4 was justified in getting the strength because he was against bursty heroes or something, but movement speed is very good. Pulse Nova damage has a much higher win rate, so I was probably mistaken going Evasion in the game that I did. And then over here, Lightning Slow Storm Duration has a much, much, much higher win rate. This, again, might be, these numbers could also be selective things. Like, for example, if I'm winning the game, I'm more likely to buy damage items than defensive ones. So when defensive perks have a much lower win rate, because let's say Leshrac is just dying every fight, he's going to feel like he needs to get Evasion over damage, because with Evasion, he might be able to survive the fight, win the fight, get a kill, and start buying items again. So sometimes these win rates are a little bit more stacked, and this one might be as well. Like, I'm winning so bad, I don't need to get Diabolic Edict because I can just get Lightning Storm and try it out finally. But this percentages that are so heavy, around 10, my gut feeling, and I don't know this for a fact, my gut feeling is that they're probably better. And I feel pretty justified saying that about armor, probably about movement speed, the damage as well. It's probably better, but there are going to be some situations where Evasion is superior. So with that said, let us hop into the game. So I was playing with my stack of homies. The reason I went Evasion this game, for example, was because I was against a Terrorblade, and Terrorblade does an overwhelming... Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I forgot about that. I wasn't necessarily planning to upload this. I wasn't streaming it. I did this one off stream. But I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Delta. Thank you for subscribing all these years. I will just constantly talk up and sing your praises of your amazing gameplay this game. I was given a Tango eventually, but only one Tango. 2 Ironwood Branches, 1 Null Talisman. So I'm just trying to increase my damage as much as possible. And this is very common to do as you're starting an item build. I'm just going to accelerate a little bit. I should have gone back earlier to block, because blocking is important. I think I brought out a salve or something like that. So the interesting thing is that I'm actually against a Razor this game. Razor as a hero, this was pre his nerf. Not that his nerf was really that big, but Razor is a very strong 1v1 laner just because he steals your damage, and then after he steals your damage, he uses that to win the lane against you most often. If we take a look at Razor's items, he has good items. I should not have missed that last hit, I don't think. He only sapped 14 damage for me, so that wasn't that bad. And what I'm basically trying to do as a hero is I'm trying to read his movements and figure out when he's going to try to run at me to get a static link off. And when that happens, I need to anticipate it and walk away from him, because then it's going to lower his chances of being able to sap a lot of damage from me. He stayed way too close to the creep wave here, so I was able to go for a Diabolic Edict, which doesn't do that much damage at level 1. It doubles the damage between level 1 and level 2, so level 1's not that great. But considering it does 40 explosions, that's 90 times 4, so it's actually, it's still a pretty good nuke. This guy's HP is a little bit low. I kind of feel like he should have chased me more there, because he could have definitely gotten more damage out of me, but I've also done a pretty shitty job using my splitter so far. I've been trying to use it for last hits, but it has a huge delay, and I have not been timing it well at all. I'm actually so surprised I got that last hit, because I have 24 damage being stolen here. But one of the things I really like about Leshrac here is that against Razor, he can actually contest and fight Razor, because I deal so much magic damage with my skills that I don't care that much if he saps my right click, because I can actually still kill him. That was so off. It's actually so off. It's one of those games where I do not remember how badly I did in the laning stage. Holy crap. So I was opting to buy another Null Talisman so that I could try to be competitive in last hitting, which was not happening here. I actually missed so many last hits. Except for that one. Still trying to harass here when possible. My second Null Talisman's coming. I should probably salve here. And once in a while I'm going for nukes to guarantee last hits. It's good to remove. I guess I didn't really need to do that because it wasn't going to heal. It was going to max me out anyways. But now that I have 2 Null Talismans, I have a lot more base damage than he does, because he hasn't gotten his second item. He actually got a Windlace. He does 60, I do 68 now. So I should be able to get last hits if he doesn't steal last hits from me. Again, at this point, this is pre-patch on Lesh, so my Lightning Storm would have done 50 damage if I skilled it. But either way, against a Razor, I definitely want to go for things like Diabolic Edict. The Split Earth AoE, you might actually really... It might seem like it doesn't get that much bigger with only 25 radius per level, but the damage difference is, or the AoE difference is actually huge. It really helps you land skill shots a lot better. Things like this are what I should be doing, is trying for split earths that are going to harass my opponent and also gain me a last hit. It's definitely easier to do that if I get Lightning Storm, though. I figured he would fall for this. And I also tried really hard to get the Razor kill here, but obviously made a big mistake. I should be buying boots before I die. I did... Oh, apparently I had no reliable gold. I did not realize. I guess that makes sense, right? It's the start of the game. If you get no hero kills, no tower kills, no courier kills, you don't have any reliable gold, so I should have bought out a TP. But I did get my boots at least, so it wasn't terrible. So the mistake I made was that I was feeling very confident in that I could actually fight the Razor. I ran past the creep to try to go for some pressure because I knew that... the Razor had this tendency to stick around when there's only one creep left. And if I just run past that and cast Diabolic Edict, I can run with him and deal a lot of damage. My mistake was that I committed too far. I went too far past the tower. And instead, what I needed to do was wait until I hit level 6 to go for trades on this guy. And that's because Pulse Nova is OP, like I told you guys before in the Dotabuff section. The amount of damage that it deals is massive, massive. We have a gank coming here. I was not watching my Witch Doctor. I canceled that one and went for the kill. This is a pretty big mistake by Razor. Just hit 6 here. So now I can do Leshrac things by literally just walking with my opponents. And then they just die. So that was good. Nice double kill. Good rotation from Witch Doctor that I did not pay attention to on the map. I am so bad at looking at the minimap. But with that double kill, it puts me in a much better place. And now I'm kind of solidified in a safe position. I was thinking about diving this this Jakiro here. Ooh. I forgot that I lived there. Barely caught me. I wish that I could have bought my arcane boots while I was running away there, but no current position, obviously. So I'm alive, going back mid. Should get my arcane boots most likely. I'm gonna try to land a stun here when he doesn't know that I'm in the area. Fortunately, I hit JK. He stayed around way too long. This is a really big mistake by the Razor. It's like one of those moments where he realizes that I'm playing the same hero that he is, except my hero is better than his hero. Like, honestly, these two characters are very similar in how they function. I stand next to them and they die, but I do magic damage and he has to ramp up a little bit by sapping damage. I do not have to worry about that myself. Same thing. A little bit late. Either way, I think that was a decent rotation. I get arcane boots out of it. I'm going to take my null talismans off my hero whenever I use arcane boots because it'll provide me much more mana otherwise. Maybe not much more, but a little more. It's going to be at least like, I imagine 20 mana or something like that difference. That's just because null talismans do increase my mana pool. So lowering my mana pool when I increase it with a static amount is going to change things up. I land a stun on this guy, cast my Diabolic Edict. Super, super easy kill. So the important thing mostly is that the creep wave dies, and the creep wave will die if I use Pulse Nova, basically. So I can clear the creep wave super easily. I'm waiting for a rune. Hopefully it's top. It is. It does end up being top. If I want to burn my bottle charges here, what I should do is drop all of my items to go through all charges. You'll see how much of a difference it makes here. Because now I only have 700 mana. So all the mana that I'm gaining from these bottle charges, it's going to give me... I do take that off again. But now I'm basically full. That was 5 bottle charges and 1 arcane boots, and I go to full mana pool, even though I only have 1,000 mana. Just wanted to commit to killing this here. This is going to be a suicide, most likely. JK. Let's look at that again. I probably sped that up. I thought this was going to be a Jakiro kill for sure, but I think when I stopped moving, it guaranteed that that didn't happen. And then I definitely needed to run to the right. If I ran to the right instead of the left, I would have been fine. But I didn't assess the map very well while I was dead here. Chachi's been loving this Crystallis Wraith King build. I still think it's bad, and it's definitely not as good as going something like Armlet, but he's been liking it, and he has been farming pretty well with it, so I guess I can't complain a super huge amount. So now that I have Veil, my HP is still a little squishy, but I've got 6 extra armor, and it's going to increase most of the damage that I deal. It'll increase the Pulse Nova damage by 25%, as well as my Split Earth, and eventually my Lightning Storm one as well. So I just need to make sure that I can chase this guy here. Luckily for me, he eventually let me get in range of him. And he actually just died so fast. Again, he's taking an extra 25% from Pulse Nova. I didn't have to use Split Earth, and with Edict, I can just run into the trees, and it'll hit people in an area around me like this. So even if I can't see them, it's okay. It's still going to hit them. I see that Arcane Rune. I really want that Arcane Rune. I think it ended up getting stolen, yeah. I should have probably gone straight for it, rather than letting Razor, giving him time to grab it, because an Arcane Rune's really good on Leshrac. Because I'm casting so many spells, and the lower cooldown is obviously really beneficial. And if you ever want to kill a creep wave, just turn on Pulse Nova. It's so mana inexpensive that it's not a bad thing at all. You can just turn it off. Obviously, it's 70 mana to initiate it, but once it's on, if you leave it on for 5 seconds, we're talking about 500 AoE magic damage, and that's cost us 170 mana, which is almost nothing. So I'm going to go stand over here with the hopes that after Razor kills this creep wave that he moves to the top lane. But based on his positioning, it kind of seemed like he had vision of me because he was attacking from the southeast corner. which seemed a little bizarre. The only explanation is basically that they had a ward. I'm still going to wait for opportunities like this sometimes, though, because it would be a good chance to get a kill. Because if he does find me or walk into an area where it's just me and him in the jungle, I'm going to kill him every time because of how much damage output I have. And I'm going to try to catch another hero in a rotation, but approaching there would have failed because she would have seen me approaching, so now I need to wait until the next wave to make this work. I ended up getting blocked on the creeps really badly there. But either way, it's going to be okay probably. Trying to catch the Dark Willow. Okay, that's where she ended. I'm just checking that because I wanted to see where she ended up running. Wow, that was actually really close. I almost hit her with my stun. This is a little greedy for me now that I'm this low in mana. It's probably would have been safer if I just didn't end up being in this position. I should have dropped my arcane boots most likely when I used that regen. Would have been the safer thing to do. But with this Void Stone, I've got a little bit more mana regen. This is going to be part of my Bloodstone, obviously. Still not sold on the Veil of Discord being bought this game, but I think it's pretty good against both Razor and Terrorblade, so I feel like it's kind of justified. Just because those guys do a lot of physical damage. Skeletons are pushing. As you can see, Diabolic Edict does a stupid amount of damage to towers. Probably went a little too crazy here. Luckily, Chachi dies in this moment. Gotta be careful not to... Definitely need to run now. I've kind of overspent my mana here. Still kind of hanging out just in case there's an opportunity to help out. Because even something like 140 mana to throw out a Split Earth is a lot of damage. It's like a typical support contribution. So I'm going to go over here and see. I think there was a bounty rune. No, there wasn't. Gonna play a game with Moonhead right after this. Running back in. I also finished my Perseverance, so I have even more health regen. I don't really want to spend mana on this wave. I thought I might, but I'm glad I didn't, because by hanging out in this area, we're still looking to pressure, essentially. And spending too much mana is going to mean that I don't have enough if a fight does end up happening. So I'm really close to finishing my Bloodstone now, because again, you should always disassemble your Arcane Boots when you make a Bloodstone. Pretty much always. There's almost no situation where you don't want to, because finishing the Bloodstone gives you more than enough mana regen than losing the Arcane Boots does. So it's just worth doing to get the item faster. So a mere 2,300 gold and I should have this finished. And I felt this was maybe a little greedy to push this lane like this, but I felt comfortable just killing the creep wave. With that said, I think I died here. I would have had to stun. Moonhead almost saved me. Yeah, I did remember dying there, though. I maybe should have retreated this way, but I thought there would be rotations this way, but in reality, that was probably just a sole Terrorblade pushing, and the other dire heroes were in this area of the map. So pushing the creep wave, maybe they TP'd in here, and then because I hit 2 Bramble Mazes on the way through, that it bought enough time for me to be interrupted, is kind of what it looked like. I still did a shitload of damage, though. 1,400 just by turning on my ulti. I guess I did 1 Split Earth, but... Alright, my hero's alive. Top lane looks pretty vulnerable to being pushed out. There is a bounty rune spawn, so maybe I should have gone for those, but I kind of want to wait to see if the Razor's going to come forward. I also saw that he had a bottle, so there's a higher chance that he goes for the bounty rune, so I just want to lane wait over here by some trees. That way, if he comes forward, I'm going to be able to get a kill on him. Oh wait, I did actually end up catching him. Or finding him. So the safer thing for Chris to do in that moment actually would have been to turn on his spiked Carapace. The reason being that Razor had already used... Actually, one of the really nice things about Nyx versus Razor is that Razor does a lot of damage in a lot of ways without being able to control it, like his passive, for example. If Razor hasn't used his passive in 5 seconds, if he hasn't been near an enemy hero, the Nyx can basically cast Spike Carapace while invis, and then attack the Razor, and instantly Razor will stun himself because he will nuke the Nyx with the passive, which guarantees the follow-up stun. So it was a little bit dangerous for Chris to go for the skill shot there. It would have been technically safer for him to rely on Spike Carapace to guarantee the hit. And because there was just a fight down here, I felt comfortable pressuring this tower. I left Pulse Nova on for an extra second than I should have, but ultimately I'm just trying to deal as much damage to this tower as possible, and then I want to run away because I'm expecting my opponents to react. But considering that I have Nyx over here scouting for me, I feel a lot more comfortable sitting here because I can kind of see if my opponents are going to react. I use Edict again, which should guarantee the tower's death because they use the glyph, and now I can just walk away. So Chris used his hero's positioning really well there to give me an opportunity to feel safe pushing. And then I can go run down here, finish my Bloodstone. This is going to be some dead allies, unfortunately. Disassemble, and boom, got my Bloodstone. So now my HP is much, much higher than it was before. I've now got 20 mana per second. I still have 1 point in Pulse Nova, and I did go for the armor perk, of course, because I want survivability against Wind Ranger and Razor and the Terrorblade. And now I'm going to teleport in behind the TB here because I want to see if I can get a kill on him. Should have suicided here. He did end up dying to the tower, but my mistake was that I needed to use my stun much, much later there. I needed to wait until my HP got low, basically. By stunning him that early, he wasn't even close. He didn't die during my stun duration. He gets a Sunder off, basically. And because my HP, because he was then low, and I was high HP because I used it too early, because I'd stunned him at the start of the fight, then the Sunder was even more detrimental to me. It would have been better if I waited, even if I just hold it, maybe, and don't stun him to prevent his attacking, it might have been superior there. Like, in some ways, having an armor perk actually hurt me. Me staying alive longer was a problem. And then I instantly lose Bloodstone charges, and I certainly should have denied myself. But I was not anticipating the Hurricane Pike. It was a really good item purchase and usage against a hero like Lesh, because, again, I have to stand next to him to deal damage. Also, if I had 2 points in Pulse Nova, that probably goes better, because at the end I was just kind of running out of steam and kill potential. So now I've lost about 5 mana regen from that death. And I also, gave that guy 800 gold, which I could have suicided to give him far less gold. He wouldn't have gotten any experience. Well, I guess he got no experience because he died first. But he would have got no advantage from my death. So now I've got the 40 movement speed. I don't yet have Yules here. I don't know if I built Yules this game or not. But looking at the heroes, it could have been useful. Nice ultimate from Moonhead here. I stunned that a little early for sure. Don't really care about reflection, it barely affects me. So my illusion is not very good at right-clicking anyways. But I have massive 420 movement speed. I think I went for BOTs next, but I think I should buy a plate mail first, is what I'm looking at now, what I feel like survivability-wise. Just going to clear these as fast as I can because it's a lot of anti-push. Walking into this guy is dangerous, but luckily we got a stun from Chachi, so it ends up getting a kill. I'm definitely going to dive. This hero is definitely a snowball hero. If you get dives like this, you want to take those opportunities and continue diving. And now we just kind of snowballed them, and I'm back up to the same Bloodstone charges as before, which is nice. We're still taking a lot of damage, but I've also got a lot of HP regen, so... And make sure that when a creep spawns like this, if you're hitting buildings, that you stand away from the creeps, so your Edict does not hit creeps. Trying to land up the stun, and I completely failed. I was late there. But luckily, they still are getting the kills. Another Diabolic Edict to kill the Rex. And now everybody just backs out of safety, because they're all respawning anyways. They shouldn't have ran that way. That was a mistake, I think. And I just kind of ditched my team because I wanted bounty runes. But normally I would definitely want to hang out in the area just to see if there was an opportunity to keep them alive. There's my plate mail to go for my Shivas because I just want to be survivable against Terrorblade. And the other nice thing being that if I have attack speed reduction from a Shivas, that the Terrorblade can't damage me nearly as much. Definitely want to kill the creep wave before I use Edict, which I've done now. Let the Edict damage continue on the tower. Like, Lesh is so good at pressuring tempo and just ending games, essentially. Good Force Staff to buy him some time. Use the Veil now. Miss my stun. Creep Wave's eating my Edict a little. And now with this Glyph, it kind of feels like it's time to back. I used Wand so that I could get my other charges in. Alright, I look dead. Alright, Moonhead saved me so much here. And then we got a double man stun and get to do a lightning and... Oh, that was good. Moonhead saved me big time there. That was such a huge ultimate. A second before that, it looked like suicide time for me, for sure. And then I swap the wand back in because the bottle's empty, and at least this will give me stats and HP regen. Boom. Shiva's is done. Bottle now so that I can bottle any runes that I find. You can kill ancients a little bit, especially the Drake ones that have no magic resistance. Those ones are certainly killable. Killing these other ones doesn't work great because they have a lot of magic resistance, but it looks like it's still dealing like 50 damage at proc, which is not terrible. And I'll max out Pulse Nova now just because my damage output is good. Go top to get the other bounty runes for regen purposes. I think I was thinking about getting that regen, I can't remember. Now I just have too many item needs. Alright, there we go. So this is even without Yules. I know that in S4's game, well, I guess technically he's the same movement speed because he bought a Yules, but I got the movement speed perk. So I'm at 470 movement speed. So if you go movement speed perk and you have a Yules and you have BOTs, you're looking at 510 movement speed. Base. That's without anybody having a drum. That's insane movement speed. I'm also approaching my 20 perk, which in this game I ended up getting evasion. I think it basically feels like this game, like no matter what happens, we're going to win this game. Since we already have 2 racks at the 25-minute mark and we have ways to deal with all of these illusions. But I don't think it was a bad move to want to get that. Hey, my Edict is hitting the tower at least. We actually all kind of died in that. Ah, I took damage from that. Oh, I remember this. I was so mad at Moonhead. He was like, "What? I'm healing you." It's like, dude, you just got me killed. I definitely should have thrown the stun. I definitely should have thrown the stun earlier. I was so mad at him. I'm like playing on the edge, being like, "Wow, I've got like no HP." And he uses it when I'm in vision. That was the issue, basically. Was that like, he could still see me. I get stunned for 4 seconds. Yes, I got healed for like 20% or so. How much did I even get healed for? 4% times 4? 16%. I got 16% of my health healed, which is like not much. It's like 300 HP. That bastard. Lightning setup into stun is pretty good. Move around the map. This is a little bit dangerous for me to be in this kind of a position. I still feel like Veil was probably worthwhile this game. I think I used it pretty well. I didn't like forget to use it. There's a lot of times. I mean, you can use it against creeps. You can use it against heroes. Killing illusions is great. I probably should have toggled my ultimate on for a second there to get those extra 2 last hits. My last hit numbers are pretty good. They could be higher. I have been fighting a lot though, but ultimately my net worth is super high. So I'm pretty happy. This is a little dangerous. Yeah, 1 toggle on there to finish the creep wave. And now I get 20. I end up getting the evasion perk because I was slightly worried about the damage I was taking physically. And there's no way basically that TB is even close. I saw that he hadn't finished Manta yet, so I know that it's going to be a long time until he finishes or has the potential to get something like MKB. Same thing for Razor. That's not an item that he's ever going to find. So I actually feel looking at the game in this position when I got the level 20, I think the evasion perk was more than fine. With that said, it's still important to think about the balance of they must have changed on him, because I was not at all thinking, hey, maybe am I going to get sundered? I'm gonna have to suicide, but I didn't do it before the disable came, so I ended up dying. So I think in this position, I think getting the evasion perk made sense in that I'm going to be hitting the buildings. I'm going to be focused on, therefore I want to be more survivable. But maybe if I pulse nova damage, maybe they just die faster. Period, and we win the fight anyways. Perhaps. It's kind of hard to say. At this point, I was buying out Octarine Core because I thought that would give me more longevity and more mana and all that stuff. So maybe a little bit more raw HP would have been what we needed. Don't know why I didn't stun there. That worked out. I'm gonna look at that one more time. So, oops. So it's pretty hard for Blanket to stun him. I think he went for a hit stun, which is probably a mistake, but I guess it did a decent amount of damage. I tried too hard to get the courier. I should have just done a follow-up stun. And he tried to sunder just there. He should have just sundered the Nyx probably. And I'm trying to stay in the fight, but I also don't want to stick around too far, and I probably should have just ran there. Yeah, they actually deal a lot of damage to me. Between Bedlam and this guy focus firing with Maelstrom and even Razor right-clicking. So I had to suicide there. But I think the big mistake was that I needed to stun follow-up after Chris's stun, period. So I definitely feel like my damage output is suffering a little bit. If I had gone the damage perk, maybe this all would have felt different. Sometimes it's a little hard to close out the game when you do dumb shit. Push out creep waves confidently, grab bounty runes. Sold my bottle, finished my soul booster, so I've got an extra health, a bit of health. Excuse me. Still no Octarine, but we will get there soon. That was pretty much an impossible grab. Blanket is going to die. Hurricane probably kind of saving him again here. Oh, he accidentally clicked the Razor, I think. That's kind of what it looked like, at least. If I have Yules, I can Yules myself when those stuns come. Evasion perk. But we're kind of outputting a lot, but we're not quite breaking them, is what's happening. We're having trouble killing solo heroes. Which is probably because we're fighting in lanes that aren't top. I was also sad about that one. Like, if we just fight here, my Edict is going to kill the tower, period. Tower's dead. I'm going to walk away now. Nope, I'm going to be chain stunned. Moonhead saves the day. And those Hurricane Pikes were actually so useful against me. Again, upset about this one. He has healed me, but he's also prevented me from being able to... Alright, fight is mostly over. Man, this is actually kind of a crazy game. Run away from the guy that's trying to sunder me. Should have casted Edict earlier, but it's okay. Alright, that'll be Mega Creeps finally. Got my Octarine. Not that it matters. Definitely needed BKB or a Yule Scepter this game because of the Cursed Crown, for example. It just always worked reliably. And I just always had to deal with getting stunned. I definitely died too much this game, but I think it should at least show kind of at least how fun Leshrac is in a lot of ways. Another really good thing about the Yules that I forgot to mention is you can use it for stun setups, just like Lena in that way. I guess you never really get cast range on Leshrac, but at least for setup wise, you can use it defensively, you can use it offensively. Use it to interrupt blink daggers and go for a stun setup afterwards. It's always going to be useful if I could find Leshrac. Yeah, Yules, go into Split Earth, boom, 2-second stun, followed up with your other abilities. So I think I probably needed to get Yules regardless. I think I could have skipped the Veil of Discord, perhaps, but I don't necessarily think it was a bad thing. I think I probably should have skipped the Octarine for sure. That should have been a BKB. Most likely would have been the safer move, just to become magic immune, not have to worry about Terrorize and Bedlam and all of these magic damage sources. But yeah, I love Leshrac. I hope you guys enjoy him too. Go try him out sometime. I will see you guys later. Have a good day. Bye.